So the CARES Act, which was passed back in April, allocated $1.25 billion to Rhode Island for emergency use, and currently the state is planning on using $50 million for small grants to small businesses. The SBA EIDL program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, also offers small grants to small businesses, and that was part of, if it wasn't part of CARES, it might have been part of the act before that. I wanted to ask both of you your thoughts on the grant programs. Congressman, you mentioned the Restaurant Act. I'd like to hear a little bit more about why you think that is something that you're sponsoring, and Dylan, if you want to talk about programs of that nature as well. Congressman, if you want to start, please.
Sure. Well, the Restaurants Act is introduced by and sponsored by my colleague Earl Blumenauer, and the bill has right now about 171 co-sponsors, and the bill would provide a $120 billion fund for basically revitalization of the restaurant industry. As I said, they've been hit particularly hard because they really depend on customers being able to come into their restaurants. As we know, both in Rhode Island and across the country, they are now limited capacity, and both being able to have people come into the restaurants at only a fraction of their capacity right now, and or they can serve people outside. You have to have obviously social distancing both inside and outside. My concern, of course, is right now the weather is great, a little warm, but obviously everybody likes eating outside, and that's easy to accommodate right now. But I'm concerned about the fall. This pandemic isn't gonna go away just because summer is over. In fact, health experts are saying that we're particularly worried about what's going to happen in the fall, since we know this virus is airborne right now, and public health experts, medical experts are saying that the droplets can hang in the air for quite some time. Being indoors is going to be a real challenge, which means I'm concerned that the restaurant industry is going to be hit again even harder once the fall gets here. So this $120 billion fund would be specific to helping the restaurant industry to weather this storm, in the same way that it would be a grant program like the PPP program. It would provide grants to restaurants and others areas of culinary, so that they'd be able to keep the doors open and keep their heads above water, which is what we need to do, because this is both a public health crisis and an economic crisis. We want to get through the health crisis, but we don't want to have a devastated economy at the other end. And that's what I'm concerned about. We have to do both, battle the health crisis, but also help our businesses, especially these mom and pop restaurants that we all love, to get through the economic crisis as well.
Thank you. Helen?
I think the thing about the Restaurant Act is that for a lot of businesses, it's too little too late. There's already a series of businesses and restaurants that have closed. They've gone out of business. One of my favorite places down the street from my house, Louis Fuller's, just closed shop. I was speaking with a woman in the arcade the other day, a place I've been getting lunch at for years. And when I asked her how she was doing, her eyes welled up. That was the only answer I needed. The problem is that the PPP loan failed restaurants. The PPP loan, the incentive structure was based on the size of the loan being given out. So what happened is bankers ran to large corporations and said, hey, you qualify for a PPP loan. Now, what we could have done, what Congress could have done is set it up so the PPP loan, the incentive was based on the number of loans given. That would have had banks running to small mom and pop restaurants to make sure that they got the PPP loan, because they would have gotten their money based on the number of loans given out instead of simply the size of the loans. If that happened, people are walking up and down Westminster, Broad, and Main Streets across the country, making sure that mom and pop places are getting bailed out. They're getting the PPP loan that they deserve. But that's really only a temporary solution. Anyone that works in the industry knows that the margins were too tight for too long, well before the pandemic hit. And that's really an issue of the economy as a whole. Our economic systems are set up in such a way that it's difficult for people to have enough money to go out to eat. Not as many people go out to eat as often as they wish. And the margins in the restaurant industry itself are very tight. That's really a result of our entire economic system. Now, if you think about how tight those margins were before the pandemic, and you recognize the fact that no matter what we do, there will be a decrease in the population that goes out to eat on a going forward basis, probably for many years. Those margins won't work. That math won't work. It particularly won't work for independent restaurants. Large-scale restaurants and chains have access to finances that local places do not. The thing about local places is that's what makes everything great. That's what makes a place. That's what makes Providence Providence. That's what makes Rhode Island Rhode Island, right? They're the places that you can't get anywhere else. They're in the greatest jeopardy. And I'm deeply concerned that unless we have serious large-scale economic change, which gives working families more access to income so they can spend more money in the local economy, and we decrease the costs on restaurants, the restaurant industry, especially the independent restaurants, are at risk now and for the long term.
Thank you. Congressman, anything you wanted to add to that? Or?
To add that there were 2 phases to the PPP program, and they have been vital. There's both the initial PPP program and the extension when the money ran out so quickly, and then we voted in Congress to replenish that fund. PPP was a vital lifeline for so many businesses and helping them to keep their heads above water right now. It didn't solve all the problems, and we really need to do another round, both of stimulus, direct payments to individuals, but also help with another round of PPP if at all possible. Again, it's helping. It's not the perfect solution, but we wanted to keep the family, if you will, intact, the workers for a particular company or restaurant intact, so that even if they were paid to stay home, people were still on the payroll. But also, once obviously the public health officials opened up when they gave the go ahead and said we could reopen, that businesses were going to be able to have their workforce intact, be able to get up and running again. So it was a good first effort. We need to do more. That's why the Restaurants Act, I think, is important. But I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get another round of stimulus through, and that will, again, further help small businesses.